All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you've spent even 5 minutes around car culture, you already know the name we're looking at today, the fourth generation A80 Toyota Supra. We're talking about a machine that started out as a highly capable Japanese sports car and somehow transformed into an absolute mythic icon. Today, we're going to unpack exactly how that happened, breaking down the entire cinematic evolution, the engineering, and the culture behind it.
So what actually made the MK4 Supra so undeniably special? I mean, why is a car from the 1990s suddenly commanding six-figure auction prices today? Was it purely the engine? Was it that massive global pop culture explosion? Or maybe a perfect storm of elements? That is our central question. We aren't just going to sit here and read off a list of specifications. We're going to explore the entire landscape that allowed this machine to achieve legendary status.
To really understand the legend, we can't just start in the 90s. We have to look at how Toyota separated the Supra from its humble origins. It didn't just appear out of thin air. Back in the 1970s, the Supra name was literally born in the shadow of the Toyota Celica as a longer, wider, slightly punchier version. But as we moved through the 80s, Toyota deliberately shifted the Supra away from that Celica line to create a dedicated track-ready weapon. By the early 1990s, they completely severed those ties to drop the A80, a serious, standalone, high-performance sports car.
That brings us to Section 1, the birth of the A80, engineering a true sports car. Toyota's engineers approached this fourth generation with a totally single-minded focus to legitimately challenge the absolute best cars coming out of Europe and beyond.
They weren't just building something that could go fast in a straight line. They were engineering a massive leap forward in handling and driver involvement. We're talking obsessive weight reduction. They dramatically beefed up the chassis rigidity to handle high-speed cornering, dialed in some incredibly advanced aerodynamics, and wrapped the whole thing around a super high-performance, driver-focused layout. It was a massive technical flex for Toyota.
And visually, a total game-changer. It was a radical departure from those sharp, wedge-like angles of the 1980s. Instead, you get this long hood, a super-wide, aggressive stance, rounded bodywork, that massive rear spoiler, and the iconic double-bubble roof treatment. Now, believe it or not, the sweeping silhouette wasn't universally loved by critics on day one. But man, did those clean proportions age beautifully. Today, it's easily one of the most recognizable profiles in automotive history. Let's shift gears to Section 2, the heart of the beast, the legendary 2JZ engine. This right here is the absolute mechanical core of the Supra's mythos.
If you've spent any time at all on automotive forums, you've probably heard this name spoken in hushed, reverent tones. The 2JZ GTE. It's a 3.0-liter, double overhead cam, 24-valve, twin-turbo inline-six. But what actually made it legendary was its foundation. Toyota built it around a highly durable, heavy cast-iron block. They over-engineered it with such a massive structural margin that this hunk of iron could handle a ridiculous amount of stress and pressure well beyond what it came with from the factory. Now, to give this beast its smooth factory power delivery, Toyota developed a really complex sequential twin-turbo system. Instead of just dumping all the boost in at once and dealing with tons of lag, they split it up. Step 1, the primary turbo spools up quickly for immediate low RPM response, perfect for normal driving. Then, Step 2, that second turbo kicks in, delivering massive high RPM power. It was an absolutely perfect balance of street drivability and top-end exhilaration. But here's the thing. All that power is completely useless if it doesn't meet the pavement properly. The MK4 delivered what is arguably the ultimate analog experience, rear-wheel drive paired with a highly desirable super tactile 6-speed manual transmission. In an era where a lot of manufacturers were already starting to mess around with early, clunky electronics, this pure setup became the holy grail for driving purists. It demanded real skill and gave you an intimate mechanical connection to the machine.
Which perfectly sets up Section 3, the tuner phenomenon, unleashing the platform's potential. This is the exact moment the story shifts from just being a great factory sports car into an absolute cultural juggernaut. The global fascination really exploded when people realized the A80 was essentially a blank canvas. On the track, it was out there cementing its credibility in the All-Japan Grand Touring Car Championship. But out on the street, the contrast between the factory setup and the tuning world was just staggering. Shops started completely ripping out those complex sequential twin turbos meant for drivability. They slapped on massive single turbos, upgraded the fuel systems, threw in custom engine management, and built these cars for extreme drag racing.
And the magic number they were chasing? 1,000. Yep, 1,000 plus horsepower. Because of that wildly over-engineered iron block we talked about, tuning shops realized they didn't even need to rebuild the entire bottom end of the engine to make insane power. They just turned up the dial,
completely dominating drag strips, dyno events, and the entire import scene. The Supra literally became the undisputed king of horsepower potential.
Moving into Section 4, a pop culture icon, going global with Hollywood and the digital age. Because let's be real, 1,000 horsepower in a tuning shop doesn't make you a worldwide household name. It took Hollywood and the internet for that.
We literally cannot tell this story without bringing up Brian O'Connor's bright orange Supra in the 2001 movie The Fast and the Furious. Now, did that movie create the car's reputation? No, it was already a hero in the Japanese import scene, but it massively expanded its cultural reach. That heavily modified 10-second car, driven by Paul Walker, introduced the MK4 to a mainstream global audience. It instantly became the childhood poster car for millions of kids who had never even been near an underground drag strip.
And right alongside Hollywood's impact was the dawn of the digital age. The Supra's fame spread like wildfire across early internet automotive forums where builders traded secrets late into the night. Then came the viral, super grainy YouTube videos of Supras just absolutely breaking dynos. Throw in starring roles in massive video game franchises like Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, and Forza, and the car's fame was inescapable. You could literally race this thing from your living room years before you ever got a driver's license.
Let's look at Section 5, the collector's dream, scarcity in a modern world. Because fast forward to today, and all that decades-long fame has created a very real, very expensive collector's market.
Finding a clean, original MK4 Supra with a turbo manual combination today is incredibly scarce. I mean, think about it. Because the car was so famous for being highly tunable, the vast majority of A80s were heavily modified, gutted for racing, or, unfortunately, wrapped around a tree. So finding an untouched, factory-original turbo manual is the ultimate prize for collectors. This sky-high demand and ridiculously low supply are exactly why you see original Supras crossing auction blocks for prices that legitimately rival brand-new supercars.
And to really understand why people pay those crazy prices, you just have to look at the massive shift in automotive engineering. Sure, modern sports cars are undeniably faster right out of the box, but they are completely defined by complex digital screens, dual-clutch automatics, and heavy driver safety aids. The MK4 Supra, it represents mechanical simplicity. It offers a raw, visceral, analog connection to the road. It's pure nostalgia for the golden era of 90s motoring, something those heavily digitized modern vehicles simply cannot replicate.
In fact, the A80's legacy was so powerful and so deeply ingrained in car culture that it created almost impossibly high expectations when Toyota finally revived the nameplate for the modern A90 generation. The new Supra is a highly capable, fantastic machine in its own right, for sure, but man, it carries the incredibly heavy burden of trying to live up to the MK4's mythic, pop culture-infused shadow from the 1990s.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, the perfect storm, why the legend lives on. Let's pull all these threads together and answer our central question. Why did the A80 become an undeniable automotive legend? Because it wasn't just one single thing. It was literally a perfect storm. It was brilliant, robust factory engineering meeting an exploding aftermarket tuning culture. It was the absolute insanity of the 2JZ engine's potential, hitting right at the exact dawn of the internet and propelled by Hollywood blockbusters and video games. And today, it's fueled by the scarcity of original models and our deep collective nostalgia for pure analog driving. All of these factors just collided at the exact right moment in history.
So, as the entire automotive world moves steadily into the digital and electric age, where we're gaining all this instantaneous torque but losing that tactile mechanical connection, it leaves you wondering, will we ever see another analog sports car create a perfect storm quite like the MK4 Supra? Was the A80 the absolute peak of analog automotive passion? And will any machine ever capture our collective imagination quite like this again? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And keep asking those great questions.